Here's the situation. My husband, 36, and I, 30, have 3 kids: toddler, young child, and preteen. I'm a stay-at-home mom full-time, and I care for the kids while my husband works full-time. My sister's wedding was last week. We live hours away, which is an issue for my husband. When we first got the invite, he told me he wasn't going. He would stay for the kids and suggested I do the same. Since the wedding doesn't allow kids, and my husband doesn't want to hire a babysitter after one robbed us, we had gone back and forth on this, but I insisted on going since she's my older sister, and I wanted to attend what might be a once-in-a-lifetime event for her. He chuckled at my statement, and then we stopped talking about it. He brought it up as the wedding was approaching and told me to miss it and stay with the kids. I suggested that since no babysitters were allowed then, I could get my friend to stay with the kids, but he refused. So I ignored him, spoke to my friend who agreed to watch the kids, and booked a ticket to travel to my sister's town in time. My husband found out and went on about how he had to work and that the most logical solution was that I stay home with the kids and let him work. I told him that I already took care of the kids and they'll stay with my friend. Honestly, I grew impatient. On the day of my flight, I dropped the kids off at my friend's place and then headed to the airport. I found out he had canceled my plane ticket. I was upset but insisted on going, so I went home, got into my car, and drove 4 hours to get to the town. At 5 p.m., my husband called and was freaking out on me, asking where I was. I told him I made it to my sister's town, and he blew up saying I wasn't supposed to go, even saying he canceled my ticket to get me to stay. He demanded I return, but I said not until the wedding was over. He called me a horrible, neglectful mom, then had his mom scold me and accused me of abandoning my own kids. A huge argument ensued when I returned home, and my husband kept saying that I was horrible to leave the kids and to ignore him like that and do what I wanted eventually. He's giving me the silent treatment now, and I can no longer take it. I felt guilty and did not enjoy the wedding at all. Was I wrong for still going? Oh my God, I feel so sorry for you. But unfortunately, you're married to a tyrant. I have no words to explain how many ways your husband behaved wrong. Not the idiot, but please leave the idiot. He should be required to give you child support and alimony. You are not neglectful. Your kids were taken care of. I haven't seen this many red flags since the opening ceremony of the Beijing Olympics. He's so controlling. You lined up someone who could help him watch the kids, and missing your sister's wedding isn't something someone else should force you to do. His having his mother-in-law bully you too is so manipulative, and this is all pretty concerning. She should have very little to do with your relationship, and all of this feels like they have higher expectations of mothers than of fathers. This post was anxiety-inducing. Do you realize that he essentially baby-trapped you? He's expecting you to forget about your family, any interest outside of the home, and your kids, and anything you have to do that's personal is shameful. I'm not one usually to say this because it's overused here, but this man is gaslighting you to the point that you couldn't even enjoy your sister's wedding. Please take the time to really assess your situation and get out. Get a part-time job, maybe online so he doesn't know. Get your own bank account, and when you have enough saved up, contact a lawyer about divorce and the kids. You're still young. You shouldn't have to deal with this for the rest of your life, and your children shouldn't be raised in a home where their mother's been reduced to whatever form your husband thinks is suitable. I, 32 female, am the eldest child in a family of 8. Dad, mom, 2 brothers, and 3 sisters. Our parents told me I was adopted when I was 10. After that, all my siblings knew I was adopted, but I was never treated any differently, and I never felt like I wasn't part of the family. Some years ago, Grandma, Mom's mom, passed away in her sleep very suddenly without a will. As a result, Mom had a lot of trouble with her siblings when splitting assets. It took 3 years for everything to settle down, after which Mom told us that she'd be drawing up a will to prevent the same thing from happening. Mom came home from the lawyers beaming, saying everything was settled. We were like, okay, great. But in her excitement, she started telling us who was getting what. My younger sis told her she doesn't have to tell because it's awkward, but Mom says she doesn't want any surprises, and wants us to know in no uncertain terms as to what we're getting, so we don't fight and contest the will because it's final. After she finished rattling off the list, my siblings and I realized that I had been left out of it, so my oldest brother asked what I was getting. Mom stopped smiling and asked me if that was what I had asked my brother to say. I said no, I didn't, but I too am wondering why I haven't been mentioned. I don't know what happened, but something seemed to snap in her after I said that. She told me that I shouldn't be greedy and should be grateful that she raised me, because who knows where I could be and what I'm doing otherwise. I was hurt and told her that it really wasn't about the money, but leaving me out of her will was hurtful, and if she had really seen me as her child, she wouldn't have left me out and said all those awful things. Mom reiterated that the will's final and then excused herself. I left shortly after, but my little sis told me that Mom didn't come out of her room until the next day. I tried to resume things as they were, but her speech and text messages to me had become short and curt, and she no longer calls. We used to call each other regularly. Dad told me I shouldn't have been rude and disrespectful to Mom, that I broke her heart and should apologize. I told him what happened, and he said her money was her decision and that I shouldn't have challenged her. I didn't want to argue, so I said nothing. My siblings have been trying to talk to Mom and Dad about this, but it only makes them unhappier. Dad accused me of turning my siblings against them. I haven't visited my parents since the incident with my mom about 3 weeks ago, and we adult kids usually visit weekly if nothing comes up. Am I the idiot for asking about my share of the inheritance, which basically challenges my mom's right to her money and assets, and for causing this conflict? Not the idiot. Sure, your mom's entitled to split her estate up however she wants, but she started the conversation about the details of the will, not you. And it's normal for you and your brother to ask the obvious question. Your mother's a huge idiot for going straight to, hey, be grateful we adopted you. That's just cold, and that's an idiot reason for being inequitable in her will. On a tangent, stories like this are a great reason to talk about inheritance while everyone's still alive. Indeed and honestly, it feels like she started the conversation to let you know now that you were left out. This doesn't seem like an, oh, I forgot, but more like an, this is where you stand. But she didn't count on your siblings to have your back in this, and now she's taking it out on you. Whether you know in advance or not, she knowingly meant her final message to you. You aren't my real child. Your mother's projecting her guilt onto you. She decided she only wanted to give her biological children anything, yet deep down she knew she was being crappy and unfair to you. Rather than face up to what that says about her, she's inventing reasons why she's the victim and you're to blame and deserve nothing. She's frantically doing mental gymnastics in her head to avoid owning up to her horrible behavior. This is why she was ready to blame you from the get-go for your brother's question and snapped over nothing. Clearly, the mother has some issues. I mean, even your siblings are wondering why you're being left out. I feel like something's shady going on. Maybe your dad had an affair and you're the product of that. So your mom secretly hates you? You should get a DNA test, ancestry test, whatever will tell you the truth. My female daughter, Meg, 18, is a very active person in social causes, goes to marches and helps NGOs and homeless people. The most recent cause she embraced was the criticism of capital accumulation. My husband and I come from a wealthy background. Although our parents don't fully help, we know our privileges and the ease with which we can achieve our career and financial success. But Meg doesn't seem to understand. She often criticizes each more expensive purchase, saying that we could donate this money to needy people. I really understand her ideal, but it gets annoying all the time in any purchase she's criticizing. What she doesn't understand is that with this excess capital of ours, she has the freedom to do all this and the time without money stopping her. All the luxuries like the iPhone, car, and money are given to her so she can walk as she wants, and we agreed to help when she said she'd like to take a gap year to delve into the causes. After 3 years without traveling because of the global issue, we decided to take an international trip. Again, Meg is talking about it being an unnecessary expense to fly business class, and that money could go to other things. She proved her point, and we decided to go economy class on a 10-hour trip. On the way to the airport, I told my husband that he could go to the gate, and I would go to duty free to see some stuff. Meg butted in and started the same rant again. I was already pretty annoyed about it, and despite warning her to stop, I saw that she'd be harping on this point the whole trip. At check-in, the attendant asked if we'd like to upgrade to executive, and when Meg threatened to start over, I accepted and asked for 2 seats. She was quiet, asking if we weren't going to do it for her, and I was very honest, saying that I wasn't willing to spend 10 hours listening to it, and I wanted to enjoy it too. She started to say we should all stay in economy, and I said no. She got annoyed about it. On the trip, she didn't even enjoy anything and stayed on her cell phone. On the way back, I offered to pay hers, and she refused. When we got home, she said that we knew that she was financially dependent on us, that we agreed to support her financially, and that we refused to upgrade her seat, even though she couldn't do it herself to prove our point, and that we were vindictive for being fed up with her pointing out only the truth. And if we don't like her way, let us know and don't punish her. She's giving us the cold shoulder so far, 5 days later. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. An hilarious response. She's 18. She can get a job and donate as much of her money to good causes as she wants to. But she has no right to dictate how anyone else spends their money, even her parents. You could have doubled down on the point by donating the cost of her business upgrade to charity if you wanted to. Petty revenge would be to sit her down and say, "I'm sorry we wasted money on your trip. We will instead spend the money we would spend on bringing you with us next time on our chosen charities." She didn't deserve business class, and she did the self-fulfilling prophecy of wasting the vacation experience and making it true that her ticket would have been better spent donated to a charity. She's a spoiled hypocrite. Now she's just throwing a sanctimonious tantrum. She's a spoiled brat. You are the idiot for raising her this way, though. I hope you have enough money for her to live her whole life like this, because she certainly does not appear, from the short story shared, to have any connection to the working world or understanding of what life is really like for most people. It would help if you did things like this more often, and maybe she can learn reality before it's too late. I had a birthday dinner this weekend. A week before the dinner, I sent a mass text to 8 of my friends, telling them the location, date, and time, and to let me know by a certain date if they're coming, so I could make a reservation at a hibachi place. Most people said they would come. One friend said they couldn't make it, and another friend never responded. A couple of days later, I was talking to one of the friends I invited about the dinner, and they said that they thought the friend who didn't answer was coming, but they weren't sure. I said that he needed to RSVP, so I have the guest head count for the reservation. I never heard from the friend who didn't respond, so I made the reservation accordingly. I should add that before I made the reservation, I texted in the mass text chain with "last chance to RSVP. I'm making the reservation at this time today." On the day of my dinner, the friend who didn't respond showed up right as the hostess asked for the reservation's name. I told her that we had an extra person show up, and I apologized. She looked to see if she could place us all, but couldn't find a place to accommodate an extra person without us having to wait for 2 hours. So I told the friend who didn't RSVP that he couldn't join us for the dinner. He got mad and told me I was a bad friend. He told me it was embarrassing to be turned away from a birthday party and that he wasted time and gas coming out. I told him he should have RSVP'd. He told our friend that he might be going. I told him that wasn't good enough and he should have told me. He told me that I should have asked him if he was coming. Am I the idiot? What does this guy think an RSVP is? Does he want someone to take a paper slip with "Will you come to my birthday dinner?" Tick yes or no? Someone like this is not a friend. Not the idiot. Cut him off from your life. You don't need this toxic and manipulative embarrassment of a human being for a friend. He told someone who wasn't involved in making the reservation that he might be coming? If he can't be bothered to tell you directly, that's on him. It's common courtesy. And it isn't like you told him to leave when he showed up. Instead, you tried to get another seating and rightfully decided that a 2-hour wait would be unreasonable and rude to the others attending. You did due diligence by being nice to someone with questionable manners. He should be embarrassed by showing up and causing an issue. He could have easily avoided with a single email. How hard is it to reply with a yes? This guy was trying a power move. He had 2 opportunities to RSVP and chose not to, but told someone else maybe? Apparently, he wanted you to call him personally. I suspect he knows how reservations work and thought he was important enough to be automatically included. His move backfired. He's salty. Classic play stupid games, win stupid prizes. My daughter is a young child and just started school. My friend's kid is also starting the same year, but in another class. My friends and I picked up our kids from the same daycare, so we aren't super close, but our kids get along, so we have the occasional play dates. A few days into the start of school, my friend complained to the principal that she wanted her kid taken out of the classroom she was assigned to because the teacher was too young and didn't have kids. She didn't say anything about teaching ability, but just that the teacher was 24 and too young to be a teacher, and she didn't have kids, so she shouldn't teach her child. The principal refused to switch them because the class size was balanced between the homerooms and said he would only switch her with another kid, so one teacher doesn't get more work. So she called and demanded I agree to swap my child's classroom for hers. I asked my daughter if she wants to swap, and she said no. She's made lots of friends. It's been over a week since the start of school, and she doesn't want to leave. So I called her back to tell her I wasn't swapping, and she got angry and ranted about how her child deserved a good education and a 24-year-old had no business in the classroom. I asked her if she believed her child's teacher wasn't good, then why should I let my daughter into her class? She hung up and then came to class the next day to tell the teachers I had agreed to the switch, and the teachers called me, and I denied it and told them not to take my daughter out of her class. She called me several times and I ignored her. So, am I the idiot here? LOL, not the idiot. I don't think this person is fit to teach my child, but for yours, she'll do. If anything, a younger teacher might be more up to date on the latest methods in science in teaching young children. As a result, younger teachers are less likely to be burned out too. And 24 is not even straight out of college. She's old enough to be a mother, even if she hasn't chosen to become one. Not to mention, young teachers have the energy to keep up with the kids. Haha. I had a young kindergarten teacher and it was great. She played with us and made sure my little pre-diagnosed ADHD ball of energy self was worn out by nap time. LOL. OP, she sounds like a bad friend. I would seriously limit the interaction you and your child have with this person. My sister started teaching second grade when she was 23. Most of the kids in her class were 7 years old at the start of the school year. I remember one mom got upset at my sister saying, "You're the same age as me. You're not old enough to teach this class." My sister replied, "How are you old enough to have a 7-year-old, but I'm not old enough to teach them?" Shut that mom up pretty quickly. My mom died when I was 6 years old. My dad ended up turning to one of his good friends, Anna, and they ended up getting married a year later. Anna brought up the idea of adopting me on the wedding day. It was something my dad was all for, but I went nuts when she mentioned it to me, and I spoiled the rest of the wedding. For the next year, we did this really intense therapy, where I was told over and over again by the therapist and them that I needed a mom, that it would provide safety for me, and that it wasn't a betrayal of my mom to accept another loving mom into my life. Finally, the therapist put the recommendation to the court for approval, but when the judge spoke to me, I told him that I would run away and that I would do everything to never come back. I was 8 at the time and meant business. He asked me why I didn't want to be adopted. He listened, and when he addressed the court again, he denied the adoption request and told my dad and Anna that until I was on board, no adoption would be approved in his court. They did try again requesting a different judge, but received the same response. I was constantly asked to change my mind. Anna would put her all into trying to fill the place of a mom in my life. Every time I told her she could never be my mom, she took it as a challenge to try harder and better, and she would dedicate so much time to me that it was crazy. I never appreciated it because instead of just being Anna, and my dad telling her to just be Anna, she saw mom as the only thing she wanted. Even when she had kids of her own, I was their eldest son, and I was her son, her boy. So she'd call herself a boy mom, etc., whereas I've never called her mom. If we're being honest, I don't even love her after all these years. I see her as an intrusive family member who won't stop. My relationship with my dad is also not the best, because I don't particularly appreciate that he wouldn't take no for an answer, and he was so quick to try and push an adoption, Even after I told him that I'd rather be with grandparents or an aunt, uncle, or close family friend to Anna if he died, he insisted being with Anna and her being my mom was the best for me. I turned 18 a few months ago, and I ran like I was on fire to get away from my dad and Anna. I lived with my maternal grandparents for a little while before moving in with my maternal uncle, who lived near a good apprenticeship that I wanted to join. My paternal grandparents celebrated their wedding anniversary this past weekend, and I was there. While there, Anna approached me and handed me papers for adult adoption. She told me she loved me, and she wanted me to know that it wasn't too late, that she would still adopt me, and that she wanted to make our relationship official as mother and son. I asked her how she could be so delusional when I said no to being adopted for 11 years. I said to her face I would not change my mind. She and my dad were so angry at my choice of words, and chaos ensued at the party. Am I the idiot? Jesus, that was a horrible move to pull at a family event. You are not the idiot. OP, people need to learn what no means. They tried to get another judge to ignore your wishes, which is the biggest one for me. You said no, so they hired a whole therapist to convince you? You didn't say anything about needing therapy, so it sounds like that was literally the only reason. Your dad is kind of the idiot for rushing into a relationship and marrying a year after your mom's death and not giving everyone time to grieve. I get you exploded, but how many times could you say no until someone listens? It seems, oddly enough, like some challenge for her that she wants to win. Yeah, so they hired a therapist to work against your interest actively. Bold strategy. We see how it all played out. Her continued insistence in how she goes about it all these years is sus. Is there a deeper and hidden reason for the insistence? What else does she stand to gain if you accept? Or lose if you refuse? Hold your ground. At this point, it's harassment. I think you need to get a Mother's Day gift for Anna. A copy of the court declaration that you've legally changed your last name to your late mother's maiden name. Rotten flowers and a dead rubber rat with a card written with, "Thinking of you, optional." That's so petty, I know, but stepmom should take the hint and don't come around here no more. This is wonderfully petty, but please don't do this. You might consider checking to see what the laws are where you live around inheritance. A living spouse will inherit the entire estate when their partner dies. This may not be the case if there are living children for whom the surviving spouse is not an adoptive parent. Your dad's wife may have ulterior motives here, depending on what the law says. My 27 female family has a monthly dinner night tradition. This has existed since my two siblings and I graduated and moved out to keep the bond in contact. Back then it was only the 5 of us, but now I have many more in-laws, nieces, and nephews. I have no children, but I'm married to Jack, 27 male. Family dinner night is hosted by whatever day everyone's free on any given month, and the host fluctuates between me, my parents, and my siblings. This month is supposed to be hosted by me, and we've agreed on Sunday. The issue comes with the fact I've asked in the family group chat for my mom not to come. I clarified that my dad was invited, but I understood if he didn't come due to my decision. The reason? She absolutely hates Jack. Every month she has something to say about him, whether it's his appearance, the things he says, or just any small fumble he makes. She always has to have a comment at the ready. I don't know why she dislikes him so much, other than their opposing personalities, but he's never been rude, abusive, cynical, etc. She has no reason to dislike him. They aren't similar people, but I don't see that as any excuse not to be civil. This has never been an issue with any of my siblings' partners. I've called her out on it privately before, but nothing changed. I tried to tell Jack that we didn't need to go, but he didn't want to take my family night away from me. Last month, my parents hosted and specifically asked Jack not to come. So, was my decision not to invite her a little petty? Yes. It wasn't an easy or hasty choice. I spent all month debating about it. Jack did say he was okay with her coming, but it wasn't just about him anymore. I was personally having my own negative feelings about her. It caused an outrage in the chat though, especially with my mom, as expected. I haven't answered the phone call from her yet, as I know it'll be a mess, but I have talked to my brother who thinks I'm making a bad decision. He and my sister both agree, that I have the right to be annoyed at Jack's treatment, but at the same time, she's our mom, and not inviting her causes more rifts and issues than not inviting Jack. Our mom is just opinionated and wants the best for me, and it's cruel to shun her like this suddenly. I couldn't tell you half the crap that's been said in this one post, but the conclusion seems to be that my dad probably isn't coming. My siblings think that I'm going to cause some major family warfare by doing this, and I should just tolerate it to keep the peace. I think I'm just returning the favor, but maybe I'm being petty and should follow my siblings' advice. Not the idiot. You married Jack, so he's family now. Unfortunately, your mom set the precedence, with some family members being excluded. But I think it's time to stop with the family dinner nights. It doesn't seem to me that these are doing anything to help the family bond. I totally agree with you. You shouldn't be going if they exclude Jack from the dinners. Show solidarity with your partner, and maybe your mother will have to accept that her son-in-law is family now, or at the very least, her crappy behavior towards him won't be tolerated. Neither of you should subject yourself to her or anyone who thinks this is okay. Mom likes to play games until someone decides to play the same game. Then it's all, how dare you disrespect me? It's Jack's house as well as yours. If she can't be civil to him in his own house, she doesn't get to come to his house. 3-year-olds can grasp this stuff. You need to keep repeating, she is causing the problem. She can fix it. She doesn't want to. I, female 32, have my mom living with me. My father passed away a few years ago, and she has no other family in the States, but she didn't want to move back home. My dad's sister, my aunt, recently visited and brought her son, 23. He's moving to the States for work. They're also staying with us. Our family's fairly well off back home, and I do very well here. But in our culture, men are valued above women. My cousin is an entitled jerk, and his mom treats him like a prince. He wanted to borrow one of my cars to tour the city. I asked him how much experience he had with electric cars. He said not a lot. So I said no, period. I like my car. So I was at work when my mom called. He took the car without permission and crashed it in a parking lot. A single vehicle accident, thank God, and he wasn't hurt. But my car was trashed. Body damage and the battery is toast. So I asked him for his information so I could start my claim. It turns out the little idiot does not have his license. So I asked his mom how she wanted to handle it. She said that accidents happen, and we should all be happy he wasn't hurt. I pulled out my phone and asked Google how to report my car stolen. This would cause problems for his visa and his life. So she started crying and saying that I was a terrible daughter, and that my father would be ashamed of me for trying to get my cousin into trouble. So I said that she had to pay for the damages if she didn't want me to do it. The car is a write-off, and it's 2 years old. She ended up giving me the money for it. It means that my cousin will have to rent, boo-hoo, instead of having a down payment for a home here. His dad is angry at him, not me. My mom says I can afford to replace the car, and I'm hurting my family. But I don't care. I really liked my car. Not the idiot. Your cousin owes you a usable car. Even if the car is a write-off, you'd still have to be able to use it if your cousin didn't wreck it. Besides, if your cousin wants to come to the States on a work visa, he needs to follow the basic rules like not driving without a license. It's impressive your uncle was angry at your cousin and not you. He's angry at his son because his son just embarrassed the crap out of him. He lost face. No wonder he felt entitled to steal a car and drive it without a license. His mommy has been enabling him for his entire life. He's lucky he didn't hurt anybody. It wasn't like he just hit something lightly. Maybe he will learn something from it, or it won't end up so simply next time. My wife, 36 female, and I, 38 male, have been married for 10 years and have 3 kids, 8, 5, and 3. We both work full-time and live fairly comfortably. However, I work in sales and have had a down year commission-wise, at least compared to the last couple of years. That coupled with inflation this year and the cost of raising 3 growing kids, our budget has definitely tightened a bit. Nothing serious. We just aren't saving as much as we've been able to in years past. But also, enough of a change to warrant a careful look into our spending, in my opinion. My wife's family is large. She has 5 siblings and they all have kids. They also love Christmas. They make a huge deal about it. One of their traditions is that each sibling in their family buy a gift for every one of the nieces and nephews. We're also expected to buy gifts for our siblings and their parents. They say not to spend more than $20 on a gift, but that's still hundreds of dollars. And let's be honest, a $20 gift for a kid will either be ignored within a month, destroyed, or completely disregarded. In my opinion, I'd rather draw names for 1 to 2 people and get them a gift that's thoughtful and worthwhile. After buying school supplies for our older kids and both wanting to participate in fall activities this year, I saw our budget and saw that we're actually spending more than we have in the past few years. I had a talk with my wife about where we can curb some of our spendings. I suggested that maybe we have a talk with her family about their Christmas tradition of buying everyone a gift. I believe that's the easiest way to cut out hundreds of dollars of spending in one swoop. So she took great offense to this and told me that her family had been doing this tradition for years before I came into the family, and she wasn't going to be the one who tried to stop it. She said that we'd have to find ways to cut spending elsewhere. She told me I was a jerk for even suggesting such a thing when I knew Christmas's importance to her family. She suggested we don't buy gifts for each other this year instead, but that's only a fraction of what we're spending on gifts. When I asked her for other suggestions, she didn't have any because she likes our quality of life and thinks that we're doing fine. I showed her the numbers, and she still didn't think it was that big of a deal. I mean, yes, it's not like we'll lose our home, but I don't think she's taking this as seriously as she should be, especially if I have another down year next year. I suggested we cut way back on things like Starbucks. She gets it every day, and she got angry, saying that I spend money on golf. I golfed 3 times this year. She's mad because she thinks I'm trying to cut spending on things that she cares more about. I just think her family Christmas tradition is the easiest way to cut back. Not the idiot. Wow, your wife spends money on unnecessary things like Starbucks every single day and completely ignores your attempts to try to save money so that you aren't tight on funds and can still live comfortably. In my opinion, buying hundreds of dollars worth of gifts to uphold a tradition that may cause you both to put yourselves in the hole is not worth it. However, if she wants to buy everyone a gift this year, you can still follow a budget and buy everyone something cheap from a dollar store. You are the idiot. You're only suggesting that your wife cut back on her spending, so it's perfectly natural for her to respond negatively when you tell her that she's the problem. I get that Christmas is a huge expense, but you can't suggest on your own that an entire large family that's not your family of origin change their whole holiday celebration to accommodate you. Plus, it sounds like they do set a price cap for each present, but you choose to ignore it so you can buy cooler presents. So first, try sticking to more economical presents and see how it goes. Disagree. The wife can get a second job to pay for Christmas in Starbucks. Honestly, I would bet that almost everyone in her family would appreciate someone saying that the emperor has no clothes, but really, that it's time to modify the family tradition. Buying things for everyone just gets way too expensive. Maybe it's time for those who married into the family to meet and present a unified approach and proposal. I'm a 22-year-old female, and a few months ago, I moved into my new apartment with a friend of a friend. My roommate, 23 female, is chill most of the time. We aren't very close, but we get along fine for 2 people living together. The only problem is she does yoga in the living room. She wears loose clothes and really tiny shorts. They're so small that when she bends, I can see everything. At first I didn't say anything because I had no idea how to start that conversation. I just looked the other way. However, recently I've been working on this project, and members of my team have come over to work on it together because my apartment is the closest. I told her I would be having people over in a few weeks. She had no problem with it, but it's already weird that she still does the yoga in the living room when we're working. Then again, I never asked her to stop because it's her house too, but her exposing herself to all of us made the atmosphere super awkward, and it was really embarrassing for me. So I told her very politely that her shorts were a little too revealing and that I would appreciate it if she wore something else when we had guests over. She got really angry and said she would wear what she wanted in her apartment. She isn't wrong, but am I the idiot for not wanting my classmates to go through that too? She's also convinced that my classmates said something. That's why I brought it up. Even though I told her, it always made me uncomfortable. Not the idiot. I fully stand by you're allowed to wear what you want in your home, up until the point that you start flashing yourself to non-consenting parties. Be completely frank and blunt with her. Just say my group completely saw your lady bits, and frankly, so do I because of the shorts. Make it clear rather than vague and polite. OP, she could very well be unaware. On the other hand, if she's unaware that she's on full display, then we can't call her an idiot because from her perspective, she's just trying to be comfortable in her own home and living space and is being slut-shamed for wearing shorts and loose clothes, which is understandably upsetting and frustrating. Regardless of the clothing, I think it's really strange that she'll happily walk into a room with a bunch of strangers discussing work and get in the downward dog position. I couldn't even imagine being one of OP's team members and having a literal show being put on while we're trying to complete a project.